Well, thank you for the Inter-American Institute for Democracy for once again inviting me to talk about this issue that we face in Brazil and Latin America in general. Again, we face patterns that are very common in the region. And considering the issue of democracy, I think we need to define the terms first, because I'm actually borrowing from the ending of your comments from the ex-foreign minister of Brazil. The idea that democracy is related to the institutions is a totally idiotic perception. There's no connection between democracy and institutions. Democracy has always been in antagonism to the institutions. Either you have the rule of law, which are represented by the institutions, or you have the rule of the people that is represented by the will of the people in a democratic fashion. And it's always disruptive. Democracy, since its inception in Greece, has always been disruptive. And as the foreign minister stated, right now, there are institutions calling themselves democracy. What we're seeing in Brazil, specifically regarding the acts that we've witnessed in horror, both conservatives, center, and left witness an act that is deplorable from any sense, from any point of view. Yet, let it be known that the use of semantics to describe that is not an act of anti-democracy. That is an act of anti-institutions. It is a democratic act. It is the will of the people against institutions. Sometimes the will of the people is against another group of peoples. Sometimes it's against the institutions which we witness. So from an academic standpoint, it is ridiculous to call what we've seen anti-democratic acts. We saw anti-institution acts. So what has happened in the past? So we get to this point, which is Brazil is not the only one. The separation between the organic society of the West and the institutions that are supposed to protect the society of the West based on the fundamental principles of liberty and the fundamental principles of having a free society have totally been perverted into a dominating state, dominating institutions, and not protective institutions. This perversion is not normal. It's been planned. It's been planned by, yes, the use of language. It's been planned by the inception of new ideas, the subversion of language, subversion of values, the subversion eventually of politics, where a healthy political discussion between more intervention of the state or less intervention of the state has been perverted into the state is everything and the society is nothing, and nobody can question the amount or what the state determines. So that has been the norm in Brazil, not only for the past 30, 40 years with the 1988 Constitution, a very interventionist constitution. The first interventionist constitution of Brazil was 1934. It was totally unviable. It developed Brazil into a social state where the state does everything for everybody. The 1934 Constitution of Brazil was a rupture between the fundamental values that protected the organic society and its natural evolution, and decided to create a state that will dictate how society needs to evolve. That modus operandi, as far as the state and its institutions, has only grown and repeated itself at least 6 times in Brazil. Every single constitution after the 1934 Constitution has been a repetition of the idea that the state is the biggest driver for employment, for opportunity, for welfare, for a sovereign country, even for a sovereign individual. And the individual is nothing more than a taxpayer, a consumer, a member of the state. So this idea has to be combated by the next generation of politicians in society at its basis, understanding what truly means to be democratic. What is the will of the people? We are not witnessing an unhealthy democracy in Brazil. We're witnessing a healthy democracy in Brazil. We're witnessing a very unhealthy organization of its institutions. And where does this lead us? This leads us to what we're already seeing: tyranny. Tyranny, a dictatorship of the state, be it by elected officials, be it by nominated officials, be it by the bureaucracy that via its technocratic rulings decides how much we pay, our taxes, where, if we're incarcerated or if we're free, if we're a good citizen or not good citizen, taking away the role of society to regulate itself and to determine itself as a free society. We no longer even have that right. Brazil, as many other countries in Latin America, is suffering from this issue of not understanding what democracy is, not representing the full values that democracy really requires from the public opinion. And the public opinion, on the other hand, has to evolve itself, has to become more sophisticated, has to ask for its own rights. It cannot delegate its rights for its representatives to fight for. It cannot delegate its rights for the bureaucracy to be the ones that are leading the fight for the rights. Society needs to be able to do it themselves and to fight themselves for everything that is theirs already. Bureaucracy and government and state, these are mere representatives of that will of the people. That is what a real democracy is and a democratic system is. We're no longer in that system. So what do? Do we just sit around and watch the inevitable, everlasting expansion of the state and of regulations of taxes and the inevitable decrease of society as far as its action within the polis? Or will we see a resurgence of the real democracy taking place? That will depend exclusively on the quality of the opposition that grows within Brazil and that grows within the other countries of the region. Every single dictatorship in Latin America, every single one that was successful in implementing a dictatorship, did not have an opposition, had a very weak opposition or corrupt opposition. So right now we're under this challenge. We need to build a cohesive opposition against what we see as an ever-growing state and determine once and for all who is in rule and who is in command of Brazil and who is in command of Latin America. Is it the rule of the people or the rule of the state? That's what the real challenge is that we face right now. So far, the rule of the people is losing. The rule of the state is winning. However, we can never affirm that we do not have a healthy democracy. On the contrary, we have the best mobilized peoples in, I would say, in the world right now, as far as breadth and depth in both aspects. We need to cherish as an opposition to this growing reality, growing ugly reality. In opposition to this, we need to formalize a real opposition and a real convincement of public opinion and of society. What is their challenge? Because it is also for them to fight, not only for the representatives. That is what the state of affairs in Brazil, that is the state of affairs in Latin America.
Felipe, you have 2 minutes left.
I have 20 seconds to finish up.
We have 2 minutes.
Yeah. So with this, I open up the debate. Thank you very much for having Congress people from Brazil and other representatives from Brazil here present as well. Thank you very much once again for the Institute of Inter-American Institute for Democracy, Doutora Zélia Cardoso. Also, thank you very much for attending. And let's start the conversations. Thank you very much.